What's up, gamers? DreamcastGuy here, and it's Top 10 Thursday. Lately, we've heard all sorts of really juicy rumors floating around about a supposed PlayStation 5 that could be coming out relatively soon. But before that happens, I really want to try and celebrate the system we have now, the PS4, a console that is so amazing. It has big RPGs, open world experiences that melt your brain, and even good co-op things that are something you have to see to truly understand. Today, I want to try and do the impossible and look at the games that are dang near perfect on my picks of the top 10 best PlayStation 4 games. Number 10. Nioh. There are two things in games that never seem to get old: slaying big bosses to feel like a hardcore super ninja and exploring strange lands. Nioh is essentially a melting pot of these aspects of a great adventure, placing our hero William in Japan during an all-out demon invasion. Pushing them back and reclaiming the sacred soil is done through raw, brutal sword fighting, and you will love every second of it. The combat is a really hard thing to master, but getting good at it and eventually beating this game is something that is completely worth all the hours of dedication it takes. Number 9. Uncharted 4. There was a quote going around last year from a big developer saying that single-player games are dead, that people don't just want to pick up a nice, straightforward quest that lets us go on our own little journey alone. Now, this is something that's pretty funny because every single time I pick up Uncharted again, I have to laugh, since this is really the ultimate example of a project that conveys such a deep and powerful meaning with its story, while simultaneously it has such solid action in it. Nathan Drake has gotten into trouble all across the globe, but for this final mission, we get to see more beautiful views, more complicated puzzles, larger shootouts, and chase scenes that are seriously hard to believe. And for that reason, I feel like that it may be an adventure that can never quite be topped. Number 8. Dead Cells. I've gone on record and said that I believe that many of the indie titles that have come out over the last couple months have really grown stale and unoriginal, and yet I'm glad to see that some stuff is still willing to come out and completely prove me wrong. Dead Cells merges several aspects of design that I'm not really a fan of to shockingly make something that plays flawlessly. This is a roguelike, meaning that it has levels that are constantly being randomized, so each time you die, you pop back to life, but the labyrinth you're stuck in completely rearranges itself to be totally new and resets your character at the same time. Instead of being frustrating though, it becomes charming, creating this magical sense to the prison that we so badly want to get out of. Dodging enemy strikes, throwing my own spells, and maybe, possibly, somehow getting out of this cycle of death is something that you just crave so badly you want to win. Number 7. Monster Hunter World. In my opinion, a big part of being human is that hunger to explore at any cost, to possibly be the first person ever to experience something new. It's a sensation that's hard to explain, but it's something that's really, really special. And it's really kind of cool that somehow Monster Hunter nails it better than nearly any other franchise. World, though, specifically won my heart since it revamped so many core features of this series. We now have even bigger beasts to track down, stunning gorgeous environments to get lost in, and tinier details like just being able to craft that next big weapon that means so much to you. Chasing down a huge winged creature through a jungle and attempting not to be terribly eaten during the process of it is such a rush, and it is 50 times more fun if you have friends by your side. Number 6. Spider-Man. Just in the last few weeks, we've at last gotten this game, perhaps one of the most hyped up projects in all of 2018, and getting to sit down with it, it overwhelms you with a really interesting feeling. Something like, for the first time, you're truly getting to be a superhero. You see, Peter Parker is somebody who dons the mask to become Spider-Man and swing through the streets of New York saving people, but at the end of the day, he's a person first. He goes out and does these things because he thinks that it's something something that will actually make a substantial difference in the world around him. He's just a guy who's trying to do the absolute best he can with the tools he's given. And it's so remarkable to see how simplistic this approach is, and yet at the same time so epic. Being able to stop bad guys and fight supervillains and try and find a cure for this crazy super plague taking over the town. All these pieces are so incredible individually, but when you glue them together, it makes it something that just feels like you have to beat it or else the entire world can fall apart. Spider-Man is a masterpiece. Number 5. Witcher 3. Whenever I want to talk about this game, I'm always so conflicted as to where I should put it on a list, because it's something that's so unlike anything else that's ever been made. It's grand, vast, providing hundreds of hours of entertainment, and that's if you just count the main story and not the DLC. But on top of that, it still manages to do something that's truly remarkable, which is that it feels fresh. Going around and trying to master the magic system, or just do another side quest to figure out why a person on the countryside is cursed. All these elements are so stark in contrast. This is one of the only game series I've ever played that it made me immediately want to rush out and buy the books just to try and figure out more about the lore and the mystery and what is going on behind the scenes that we may never notice. I'm hoping someday with all my heart that we see a Witcher 4 just to see Geralt one more time. Number 4. The Last of Us Remastered. It might appear that I'm trying to cheat somehow by putting just a fancy re-release on this list, but I truly feel that this is a different version of the game because it packages all the content into one, and you really need to see it. The Last of Us is a tale that's very, very powerful because it really shows the fact that humanity pushed to the edge of extinction is going to get very, very desperate. People are willing to eat other humans or literally torture others just to try and make sure they themselves last one more day. So how do you keep fighting? How do you wake up? How do you still care about those around you is sort of the answer that this question's trying to ask. And I love the fact that if you get the remastered edition, it has the incredibly good DLC in it. So you can see Ellie as she's growing up in one of the toughest situations she's ever faced. You need to buy this and you need to play it before the epic sequel comes out, because this is a project that's so great, no other game is ever going to be able to mimic its magic. Number 3. Persona 5. When I reviewed this game last year, I gave it an almost perfect score, and sometimes I actually regret it, because when I went back through this game early in 2018, I realized that I should have given this game a 10 out of 10, because it's so packed with tiny details that you truly grow to appreciate the more times you go through it. The fact that there's just such a delicate interweaving of interpersonal connections, or just little clues hidden inside each person's mental dungeon, trying to go through these crazy labyrinths of internal torture and rescue people from their own literal inner demons is fantastic. This really isn't the kind of game you can take lightly because it asks so much of your time to fully beat, but it's truly worth the amount of dedication it takes to complete it. Number 2. God of War. Are video games really an art form? This is a query that's passed around throughout the journalism world every so often, and it's something that's very puzzling to me because it feels very straightforward. Now, the reason I'm asking this question now is because I feel like it so perfectly fits into the role that God of War plays. Kratos has done some unspeakably awful things, from slaying thousands of gods, butchering entire armies by himself, and of course murdering his own family. But now, in his old age, he's decided to go back on that, to suddenly have a son and raise his family. All of this is compounded into the really epic quest of God of War, but to really sum it up, let's face the fact that it still has some truly visceral combat. Getting to try and hack apart what are essentially ice zombies and fighting colossally huge beasts is so entertaining and so epic, it feels like like no other thing, like a painting or a film or a podcast, could really enshrine this level of emotion. So yes, simply because of God of War, I have to say that games are not only art, they're very, very important art. Number 1. Bloodborne. Throughout my life, I've always had a strange theory in the back of my head that for every project that comes out, there's at least one gamer who never plays anything else, where that particular game is so perfect to them that they never want to move on. They just stay in that world forever and just play it over and over again for as long as they can. And I think that for me, I'd probably have that connection with Bloodborne. The cursed city of Yharnam is so filled with really interesting weirdness, like people who will whisper to you through windows, or nightmarish creatures that you have to see to try and understand, but even looking at them will give you nightmares, or just missions that take hours and hours to complete. I've beaten this game several times over, and every time I pick up the controller to go back into Bloodborne, I'm just shocked that they managed to pack a game filled with co-op adventures, good PvP, and really good things like just being able to fight another epic encounter and never get bored. And for that reason, I am awarding this game as my pick as the truly best PlayStation 4 game. Did your favorite game not make the list? Got an idea for a future top 10? Leave it in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. Next week, I'm going to be diving into the games that I consider the absolute best of the best all about Xbox One. But unfortunately, there is so much amazing stuff, I just couldn't fit stuff like Helldivers and Yakuza and Final Fantasy. This is too much to even rant about, so I'm just so excited. But now, I guess I gotta get started on Xbox One because there's just so many more good games that I gotta play right this second. Alright? Let's go! Hype! Oh, hey! I was just playing a little bit of Grand Theft Auto on my Darth Vader PSP. Are you curious what I'm going to come out with next? Well, if you click this button, you'll be subscribed to be the first to know. Also, if you click over here and here, you can see my latest review and my latest top 10. I promise, it was super good. Or it was really bad, and I'm sure you can just make fun of me in the comments. Either way, it'll be a lot of fun. Thanks so much for watching.